we're going to explore how risk management is not just about avoiding failure, but about enabling success.
When you are relying upon the periodic review of a list of risks, that is not enterprise risk management. That is enterprise list management. Because all you're doing is managing that list rather than managing the company. What confidence level do you have in that number? Why do you think it's that number and not something less or something more? Is it 80%? So is decision-making or decision-oriented risk management tailored to what is needed in running the business rather than simply coming up with a list of risks? How can you say that is managing the business? It is not. It is simply keeping a list of risks that you can show the regulators. We are making decisions every minute of every day, and we need to know when the information is changing.
Welcome to the Pirani Risk Management Podcast, the space where we explore how we can turn risks into opportunities and thrive in a changing world. I'm your host, Alejandro. I'm the CEO at Pirani. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this first episode of the Risk Management Podcast of Pirani. We want to share information. We want to share experiences, thought leaders, and people who want to talk about their experiences and a lot of things that we as an industry or every company can learn from that. So I'm very honored because today we have a very special guest. He's Norman Marks. He's the author of a book that I really appreciate, is Risk Management for Success. He's a recognized thought leader. He's a former chief revenue officer and global advisor. He's an award-winning and a globally recognized risk management and internal audit thought leader. He's a best-selling author. I think he's got more than 12 books. So, hi Norman, thank you for accepting this invitation. How are you?
I'm fine. It's great to be with you. Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Good. And how many books have you wrote about risk management or in GRC?
Well, I've written a total of 17.
17.
Of those 17, there's a couple of novels and a biography. So I guess 14 about internal audit, risk management, and GRC.
Great. So I wanted to invite Norman because, again, his book, Risk Management for Success, was very important for me because we're in Pirani. We thought that risk management is not just to defend the company, to protect the company for something bad that could happen,
Right.
but it's actually for growth. So we're going to explore how risk management is not just about avoiding failure, but about enabling success. And I get very inspired reading your book. So
Thank you.
okay, so I admire your work because Pirani is also believe that risk management should help organizations thrive, not just to comply. So what motivates you to write Risk Management for Success?
Well, I've written, this was one of my later books about risk management. The first ones had been on a similar theme, that it's not just about avoiding failure, but there was so much doom and gloom about risk management that so people were continuing to see it as a way of looking at what could go wrong instead of seeing how it would actually help the organization. People, for example, surveys were showing that executives felt that about 80% of them felt that risk management was a compliance activity. I described that as it was something they needed to do to comply rather than something they wanted to do because it would help them be successful, help them do their job. And I'm very much a believer that it can and should be a way of navigating to your stated goal, to where you need to be, to the success of the organization, your success as an individual and as a team member. And so it was really, I wanted to write one that was clearly focused on trying to change people's thinking about, it's not just about avoiding risks, avoiding failures, but it's also about how can we help the organization make better decisions and achieve their objectives. For example, one of the first companies I worked at as a chief audit executive was a company called Tosco. And when they set up a derivatives trading function, I asked to meet with the top executive, the senior vice president at the time of the company, who was responsible for that area. And when I met with him, he said, Norman, I've only got about 15, 20 minutes to talk to you about risk, because I've got to get back in there and help run the company. As if there's a difference between running the company and talking about risk. And it took me a while to help him understand that he had to take risk in order to be successful, but it's all about taking the right level of the right risks, recognizing when the potential reward justifies taking risk. And he became one of my biggest supporters, but it took him some time to get over the traditional thinking about risk being a bad thing, risk management being something I have to do rather than something I need to do, and to understand that understanding risk and understanding opportunity is all about making better decisions and being effective manager of the organization.
Great. And Norman, you've been advocating for reframing risk for years.
Yes.
What do you think this change of mindset is still so hard for organizations?
It's hard for several reasons, Alejandro. One of them is that the frameworks and the standards don't talk enough about the positive. They don't integrate it into effective management. It's seen as something different. And this carries on even with the fact that we use this four-letter word, risk, that people see as just about negative things. So I think there's a lot of problems, and it's going to take some time, but it is changing. I'm seeing this on LinkedIn in particular, and also on other streaming and social media, where people are starting now to recognize the importance of making better decisions. But you still got, if you look at a board meeting, if you look at what the regulators are asking for, they want a separate risk committee that only talks about the things that could go wrong. And that's separate from the discussions about strategy and performance. And to me, that doesn't make any sense. There's a very large Canadian retail company that I heard from the board member some time ago, and it's the Hudson Bay Company. And they were breaking the mold by integrating the risk and strategy committee, recognizing that it's all part of the same. How can we achieve our strategies, set the right ones, and then achieve them? So it's coming. There's a movement. More and more people are talking about better decisions. The standards are starting to reframe risk management in terms of making better decisions in order to achieve objectives. So it's happening, but it's happening too slowly for me. I'm impatient. So I'll just write another book.
Okay. So also in your book, you suggest risk management should be called success management. Can you explain what you mean by that?
All right. So the traditional approach to risk management. Well, let me put it this way. I work for global companies, and in 2 or 3 occasions, I had a team in Singapore. And once I was there and I was talking to a PwC partner, and he had a new and very profitable business. Once a quarter, he would come into a company and he would sit down with the executives, and they would put together a list of risks. And then the board would discuss that, executive management would discuss that, but it was just a list of risks. And frankly, a list of risks, a heat map, a risk register, they're all the same thing. A risk profile, these are just a list of risks. So I don't think that's particularly effective. So my good friend at Protivity, Jim DeLoach, who I've known for many, many years, he's a very smart man. He focuses more on the governance aspect, working with boards. And he coined this. He said, when you are relying upon the periodic review of a list of risk, that is not enterprise risk management. That is enterprise list management, because all you're doing is managing that list rather than managing the company. And I think that is very smart. He's a very smart man. Very smart man.
Well, that hurts. I actually taking note of that list management. It's like I never heard that. And also in that, how should executives link risk management directly to their strategic objectives?
Good point. Let me start by just talking about a survey that Deloitte did some years ago, and they republished it last year, but it looks like the numbers haven't changed. I don't know whether they redid the survey or they're just reusing it. So they asked C-level executives, that's from the COO, CEO, and so on, C-level, does risk management at your organization help you set the right objectives and then achieve them? Set the right strategies and then achieve them? And only 13% yes said very much so. So that means that 80% are not seeing the value, frankly, in risk management outside the compliance activity. So the way I like to think about it is that each one of us are in a certain place and there's something we want to achieve. There's somewhere we want to go. There's some kind of increase in revenue, or there's something we're trying to do. And so in order to have a good chance of getting to where we want to go, we have to understand what lies between where we are and where we want to go. And some of those things are positive things that could happen, and some of the things are negative things that could happen. So, for example, if I'm driving from where I live to the airport, there's a lot of negative things that could happen, from car accidents to running out of gas to being stopped by the police because I never exceed the speed limit. But there could be things that could happen that would delay or make it difficult for me to get there. On the other hand, there could be things that I haven't anticipated that will help me get there early, like no traffic or no police. And so there are good things and there are bad things. And if I get there early, I could go and I could get something to eat and I could have a drink. I could catch up on some work. So there's both positive and negative. And in order to decide when to leave and how to go there, I need to have a good understanding of all these things between where I am here in San Jose, California, and where I want to go, which is San Francisco, California, the airport. So if I understand those things better, if I have a better idea of what's likely to happen and how that would affect my getting where I want to go, I will make a better decision as to when to leave and how to get there, whether it be taking my own car or rideshare, taking public transport. There are ways of doing that. And the same thing applies when it comes to going forward with a new project or a new marketing plan, setting up a new sales office. In order to achieve success, I need to understand all the things that might happen, both the good things and the bad things, so I can now make multiple decisions along the way that are intelligent and informed. Intelligent because I have a good process, and informed because I have a good understanding about what might happen. And I'm updating that continuously so that I always have reliable current information about what lies ahead of me, whether it's something that is positive or something that would help me achieve my objectives, maybe get there faster, or such as the ability to hire a new employee or to bring somebody that is freed up from one project onto my project to get there faster or in a better way. So the more I understand about what might happen, the better. And that is why I actually advocate not to talk about risk using that 4-letter word, R-I-S-K, but instead talk about what might happen and talk about that in terms and language that the business use in running the business, right? Because they know they have to take risk. They know that. And the risk officer needs to help them understand what those risks are and the opportunities, and do that in a way so that they can make that informed and intelligent decision. They need to be able to weigh the pros, weigh the cons, consider all the options, and then manage. Because when you manage, that's what you're talking about. You're talking about helping people understand what they have to do, in what order, to what extent, with which tools, giving them the information they need, making sure you have the right people. And basically managing is basically that journey between where you are, what you want to, where you need to go, where you want to go. And risk management should help with making sure you have the right information about what might happen so you get there.
I love that idea of that risk management is the journey. So good. And
Yeah, it helps you in your journey. Absolutely.
good. And also you emphasize confidence in risk assessments.
Yes.
Why is that so important, and how do organizations build it?
So the first time I had this concept was as an executive in the company. I was frequently at meetings, whether it be board meetings or executive committee meetings, where the CFO would get up and present his forecast for the quarter and for the full year. And if you think about it, that is actually a risk statement, because he should be taking into account the things that could go right and things that could go wrong. What new revenue contracts are going to come in at what level, what additional costs they might incur or not incur. So all of that is part of risk. So he would get up and he would say, I believe that the revenue for the quarter and the gross margin are X and Y. And I felt like I said, put my hand up and said, what confidence level do you have in that number? Why do you think it's that number and not something less or something more? Is it 80%? Is that acceptable to you and everybody else, that we only have an 80% likelihood of actually hitting that number? Because actually there's a range rather than a single point. So understanding when you evaluate any kind of risk or opportunity, that you need to have an idea of how reliable is that estimate. Is that just a back of the hand guess, maybe what we call a swag, scientific wild-ass guess, or is it based upon an awful lot of careful research that is current and applicable and reliable for the future? In which case, maybe I've got a 95 to 98% confidence level that will actually happen that way. It's interesting, by the way, that why don't risk officers accept that something that is almost certain to happen is not risk? It is, because it's still not 100% certain it's going to happen. Anyway, so yes, I think we need to understand that the risk assessment process is not certain. And that is why in some of my books, I think in World Class Risk Management, I have a whole section on the risk to the risk assessment, right? Because there are potential problems, weaknesses in deriving that risk assessment, such as missing some data, not asking the right people, weaknesses potentially in you're making assumptions, even in assessing risk. So, yeah, I think we do need to understand just how confident are we in that level of risk? Again, that level of risk being a distribution rather than a point, which is another mistake that a lot of risk officers take, is they put a single value on risk. So, for example, Alejandro, I live up here in Northern California, where we have earthquakes. And I love to ask people, what is the likelihood of an earthquake hitting over the next month within 10, 15 miles of my home? And they'll have a guess, and they'll always get it wrong. It's 100%. It's 100% likely that there's going to be an earthquake. The point is, it could be a 0.1 all the way up to a 9.5 or 10.3. All of those are possible, but hopefully the 0.1 is far more likely than the 10.3. Certainly, although, the scientists say that within the next 30 years, we're going to have a serious one, at least in the general neighborhood that I live, in the San Francisco Bay Area. But there's a whole distribution. If I I've got an app on my phone that will give me information about earthquakes. And I can go and look at that, and I will probably see 2 or 3 that happened in the last 2 or 3 days. And we didn't feel anything. It has no impact. But there is possibility of an earthquake. But it's a distribution. The effect could be anything from 0.1 to 10.3. And again, it could be close and it could be far. Same thing happens with potential revenue deals, right? When you're negotiating with a customer, you have a possibility of no deal, some deal, medium deal, high deal. Each one of them have a different likelihood, and that is not recognized nearly well enough. And so the risk officer has to make sure that the decision maker, when they're looking at things like, do I bring the CFO or the CEO in to talk to the customer because there's a great likelihood of increasing the level of sale? Okay, that's a decision. But they need to have good information in order to do that, because that CEO could be going to another customer and and perhaps increasing revenue there. So all of this is the kind of risk information that people need. And this is another issue for me, which is that decision makers don't need all the same information. Each decision probably needs information that is tailored to the needs of that decision maker. And so we should be framing risk management, if you like, around the needs of decision makers. So it's decision making or decision oriented risk management tailored to what is needed in running the business, rather than simply coming up with a list of risks. Enterprise risk management.
Yeah, so definitely risk management is about people. Is people, and there's gonna be a lot of assumptions and subjective and bias. But also, you mentioned and you talk about practical tools and culture. So you
Right.
include a maturity model, and service. From your experience, what are the most common signs of low maturity in risk management?
Oh, the most common signs are a list of risks, which is updated maybe once a quarter. Very, very common. Very, very common. And what people that is just so wrong, because risk doesn't stay static. It doesn't stay the same for a whole quarter. It's changing all the time, especially in today's environment with tariff changes going on, concerns about the impact of AI. There's just interest rates. There's huge fluctuations in the value of the US dollar going on. Concerns about employee welfare and their ability to keep their jobs, their ability to even support their family. There are concerns A lot of concerns about being able to hire people. That's been going on for quite a long time. Hiring the people you need to do the work. And that is not, it's not changing once a quarter. And you can't manage it just once a quarter. It's like driving down the freeway and only looking through the front and the rear view mirror every 15 to 20 minutes. I mean, nobody would do that, and yet they're running their organization without thinking about what might happen, except every quarter. And some people only do this once a year, and every so often I run into someone that updates their list of risks every 2 years. And it's like, how can you say that is managing the business? It is not. It is simply keeping a list of risks that you can show the regulators, because it has no other value. I mean, these are organizations where people making decisions don't look at the list of risks. They're just coming up with information on what might happen based upon their own information. And other surveys have shown that, again, there's 80% of decision makers don't even know what information is out there that they could use to help them make better decisions. And so the risk should be about how can we get people to use relevant, reliable, current information, actionable information to make better decisions and therefore have a better company.
And Norman, how often they should review it or update it? That list.
It should be constant. They should be looking at it the whole time, but within the context of what do they need this information for? Okay, so there are some things that you need to monitor simply because you may need to react to it. So, for example, you may need to be monitoring changes in government regulations or in court decisions and interpretations of law, simply because you need to be monitoring that so you can take action. But at the same time, if you're trying to make decisions, so for example, let's take a manufacturing company that needs a supply of critical raw materials. Well, the likelihood of supply chain disruption changes all the time. It could be that your primary vendor has some kind of difficulty. It could be that there are pirates or something else. For example, just today I saw in the news that Turkey has shut down any flights or any transit over Israel. The UK and other European nations have stopped the ability to send packages to the United States. So there are things changing all the time. And so we need to understand what is it that could happen that could affect my business, that I need to react to it, that will change maybe the decisions that I'm trying to make. Again, if you buy critical raw materials, you need to know about the level of supply. You need to know what's happening with price changes. You can't just look at this and, okay, I made a decision about procurement a month ago. I'll just make the same decision now. Well, things may well have changed.
Yeah, it's not as simple. Okay, review it every week. It's like the context will change. It's like you need to be connected with the context, with what's going on, and maybe you need to update it every week, or in a week, several days, because it's a very busy week globally. Like it's being connected.
Well, I like to think of it as risk management, especially risk management reporting, operates in two different ways. One of them is monitoring the kind of risks like changes in government regulations, changes in the competitive landscape that simply need to be monitored at an appropriate speed. And maybe you just need to have risk indicators or some other mechanism to tell you when they're changing. So you're not just going and looking. You have something that's alerting you that there's a change. So, for example, if you're talking about government regulations, most companies have a employer service organization. That is their job to monitor government regulations. And you just work with them, tell them what business you're in and what kind of regulations, laws, and court interpretations could affect you. And they'll let you know when something is changing. So that's one side. The other side, again, is we are making decisions every minute of every day. And we need to know when the information is changing that could change and influence the decision that we're trying to make. So, but again, different businesses will have different needs for speed. Mm-hmm. If you're in the nuclear business, nuclear energy business, everything tends to move very slowly. Mm-hmm. And so you can probably do with something much slower. But on the other hand, if you're in a financial trading organization, you need to be monitoring changes every minute, or less than a minute, much less than a minute, right? So Richard Chambers is a former CEO of the Institute of Internal Auditors. He and I both use this expression of auditing at the speed of risk, but you also have to manage at the speed of risk. And you have to manage risk at the speed of the business, because everything is changing. The business is changing, and risk is changing as a result. When risk is changing, we need to modify the business. So it's got to be a constant concern. It's simply, as you're driving, you're looking through the windshield, you're looking through the rearview mirror all the time, not just once a quarter.
Definitely. And Norman, I think it's like risk management is everybody's business within the business. So like, how do we get managers across the organization, not just risk professionals, not just the risk management team, to take ownership of risks?
Well, they don't need to take ownership of risk. They need to take ownership of achieving objectives, right? They need to take ownership of being successful. And in order to do that, they need to understand what might happen, right? And this is, we've got to stop talking the language of risk. We've got to start talking about business. And what business people are concerned about is making their numbers, delivering success, achieving their strategies, completing the project on time, hiring the right people, whatever it is, right? And our job should be to help them. I've been talking, like I said, about don't use this word risk because of this negative impact. And one of the people that follows me on LinkedIn decided to change the name of his department from risk management to decision support. Still doing the same thing, but just making it more apparent, changing the perception of what his team was doing in terms of making sure that people were able to make good decisions. And all of a sudden, the executives started listening to him. They started welcoming him into their processes, their meetings, because he made it clear his job was to help them be successful. His job was to help them be successful. His job was not simply to tell them what could go wrong, right? But it was to help them to achieve. Another of my friends, Martin Davies in Singapore, he's an Aussie, but he's been living in Singapore and working out of Singapore for many years now. He was a risk officer for a financial services organization. And as part of his job, the deal makers would send a proposed trade or deal or instrument to the risk officer, who would run models and tell them whether it was within the standards and the guidelines of the company. And most of the risk officers would just reject it if it didn't fit. He took a different approach. instead of simply rejecting it when it didn't fit, he would look at it and then sit down with that deal maker and say, this is how we can change it. This is how we can help you do what you need to do to serve your clients, your customers, make your numbers. And at the same time, we can stay within our compliance regulations. So changing from the Department of No to the Department of Have, right? No more no, or you can't do this, to let me help you navigate to your end objective. And when you are seen as helping people do their job, be successful in their job, they'll love you. They'll love you. It's not like they have to own risk. It is that you are helping them do what they always own, which is manage their part of the business and be successful. And if they're being successful, increasing the likelihood of being successful implies that they're avoiding all the bad things that could happen, right? Or at least minimizing the bad things that happen. In order to be successful, you have to do that. So we just got to change. It's not change their mindset. We need to change our mindset. That we're not there to manage risk. We're there to help deliver success. And that's why I wrote Risk Management for Success.
Great. And well, moving into the technology and the future of risk management in a world of AI, cyber threats, ESG pressures, what should risk managers be prioritizing in the next 5 years?
5 years? How about 5 weeks or
Good.
5 months?
Better.
Look, the trouble is with today's technology, with AI and everything else, advanced robotics and all the rest of it, we can't really hope to know what the business is going to be like in 5 years. As risk officers, we should be concerned that people are taking the right risks today. That they are really and very much work with internal audit on this one. If internal audit is not involved, pull them in. But there are so many things that people could do wrong when it comes to AI. This whole idea of AI hallucinations is terrifying. That AI can all of a sudden decide to do something by itself and give you bad information, which leads to real problems. This one guy that killed himself because the AI reinforces paranoia. Or the Air Canada situation, where the AI decided all by itself to give a 10% discount on fares. Air Canada management never just wanted to do that. And they actually went back and charged the customers who took advantage of that. Well, the court said, no, you got to honor that. But there's so many things we could do wrong with AI in terms of misusing it, in terms of not being able to recognize when it's giving us poor information, inaccurate, even inventing itself. My first use of AI, I asked, I won't mention the name of the agent, but I asked it, who am I? And it came back and it was very accurate. I then asked it the exact same question. It started inventing things about me to my profile. So there's something I would, if as a risk officer, I would be very concerned about the appropriate governance and use and reliance on AI. I will be concerned about what this is doing to the workforce. Okay, just think about the morale of the employees and the management team if they think they might be replaced. Now there's a heightened risk of theft, disruption, and other kinds of things. At one of my companies years ago, one of the employees in IT suspected correctly that his manager didn't like him, was going to terminate him. So what he did is he put a time bomb in the software, okay, so that it would explode at a certain point. He was much smarter than that, though. He also destroyed the backups. He changed the code in the software that was writing the backups so that it was writing bad backups, with the idea that when the time bomb exploded, the company wouldn't be able to go back up and restore. Well, fortunately, and the head of IT actually came to me. We talked about this. He went in and he actually found the time bomb. He found the changes in the software, and but the point is that if you have disgruntled employees, and AI, the fear of AI taking their job is going to increase the likelihood of disgruntled employees. That's just one of the risks. You've also got the risk of your competitors getting ahead of you. So I would very much, when it comes to technology, the first thing is to understand what's happening in the business. The second thing, or the third thing, if you like, because number one and number two, my priorities might be the same, is how can I use AI to help the management and the board be successful? And there are some very, very interesting things happening. So, for example, the companies that are doing board portals, managing the packages of information that go to the boards and their committees, they are integrating AI in there. Okay, so that increases, again, the value to the board members and management, but it also increases the risk that they could do something wrong. We've also got AI being integrated into our software products, right? And manufacturing products and our services. Mm-hmm. So if I call up with a problem, I'm probably talking to an AI somewhere. Is there a risk there that they'll give bad information? Is there a risk that my customers won't want to talk to an AI? They'll want to talk to a human. There's that people of my age, not your age perhaps, but my age, they tend to want to talk to a human being that will show more sympathy and understanding and help them know where the on-off switch is on the computer. Mm-hmm. So I will be very concerned about that, but then it's again comes back to how can I use AI myself to help management understand what's happening and make good decisions.
Good. Thank you, Herman. Going back to the risk management for success comes again, but from the more personal perspective. You had a long and influential career. Can you share one personal risk you took that really paid off?
Oh, well, there have been many. There have been many. Getting married is a risk, right? So perhaps the one that immediately comes to mind was I was in England. I had just passed my exams for the chartered accountancy, and the company gave me 3 options in addition to leaving the company. Okay, one of them was to stay where I was doing financial auditing for the company as a manager and senior manager. That's one. Another one, which was I was so close to taking this, was to move to Paris and live there and work in Paris. And I tell you, I love France. My wife and I both go there every year if we can. And at that time, I was fairly fluent in French. And I was single. And French women, French food. Oh la la. So I was very, very tempted to take that. The third one was I was asked to join the computer audit team. And I decided to set aside my love for France from a professional point of view and move into this new field of technology auditing. And I found my niche. I found something I loved, something which I seemed to be better than many. And my career took off from there.
Wow.
But
What year was that?
evaluate all the options. I didn't know whether computer auditing was going to really be productive. I had no idea really whether I would be suited for it.
Mm.
And I was not taking this opportunity in France, which is far more interesting than staying in London. But I decided that the upside outweighed the downsides. So my list of pros and cons was definitely take that risk.
Love it. Take that risk. Like with no risks, no story to tell.
No risk. What they say, no risk, no reward.
No risk, no reward. Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Norman. Thank you very much for all that you share. I would love to be in talking with you like for hours, but I understand that it's just 1 hour. Maybe we can take another episode because you have plenty of knowledge to share, plenty of books that you already written. But thank you very much. Is there anything that you would like to share with the audience about to close this concept or the invitation of risk management for success? And I love your take. It's not for the 5 years, it's for now, for 2025. What would you be that advice?
So the way I think about it, close with this, everybody talks about wanting a seat at the table. They want to be invited to the management meetings. They want to be invited where decisions are being made. Well, who do you invite to your table? You invite people who can contribute, people who are bringing information or stories or something that is adding value. And so we have to find a way to be not only in our own minds, but also in the minds of our customers. We need to be helping them be successful. And with that in mind, I'll share with you that my recommendation for evaluating the effectiveness of the risk management program, the risk management office, is by asking your customers, are you valued? Do they want you? Are they willing to fund your business? Are you helping them achieve their objectives? And if not, you're probably not effective. If you are, that you recognize as contributing to their success, well done.
Love it. Love that concept and that advice. Thank you, Norman, very much. And thank you. And I hope the audience enjoyed this as much as I did. So goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. This was fun. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the Pirani Risk Management Podcast and share with your colleagues or friends. We'd also love to hear from you. Leave us a comment or review with your thoughts and questions.